Usually when we talk about like a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of precision.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like you break your arm, right? And the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, there it is, broken.
Yeah, it's undeniable.
Exactly. It's clean, it's binary, and honestly, it's comforting because we like things to be visible, but
Yep.
but then you step into something like the world of neurodevelopment and trauma, and suddenly that x-ray machine is useless.
Right, right. It doesn't work.
Yeah. We're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is just incredibly murky, which is why today's deep dive requires a total perspective shift.
Hmm.
We are pulling from this really fascinating series of articles and notes written in mid-2026 by a painting contractor named John Constantine,
Yeah, from the Duden House Painting Company,
down in Florida.
right down in Florida. And our mission today is pretty simple, but it demands that same kind of perspective shift I was just talking about.
We have to stop looking at house paint as, just a cosmetic decoration. And we have to start treating it as a highly engineered structural defense system.
I mean, that shift in thinking is really the only way to understand what's actually happening on the surface of a building.
Yeah.
Because we're so conditioned to think of picking a paint color like we're picking like a throw pillow for the sofa.
Right. Just totally aesthetic.
Exactly, just aesthetic. But these sources out of Florida make it abundantly clear that if you choose the wrong chemical composition for your exterior, I mean, that coating is going to literally peel off in sheets after a single stormy season.
Wow. Just one season.
Just one.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, treating this as an engineering decision can give you a barrier that lasts a decade,
Yeah.
drastically increases property value, and surprisingly even boosts your cognitive productivity if you happen to work from home.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can talk about the armor, which is the paint, obviously, we really need to understand the enemy. And these sources focus on Pinellas County and Dundon in Florida, which serves as this ruthless, real-world testing ground for architectural coding.
Oh, absolutely.
We are talking about 3 relentless threats operating simultaneously. So there's intense UV radiation, high ambient humidity, and corrosive salt air.
Yeah, and those 3 elements are essentially conducting a coordinated attack to dismantle standard paint.
A coordinated attack. I like that.
It really is. People assume paint just gets dirty or, loses its shine over time.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's a fundamental structural failure of the coating itself.
Okay.
So UV radiation, for instance, it isn't just fading the color. Those ultraviolet photons carry enough kinetic energy to actively bombard the surface.
Like physically hitting it.
Physically hitting it.
Yeah.
And they shatter the polymer chains in standard paint formulas at a molecular level,
Wait, really? It's literally snapping the chemical bonds apart.
snapping them like twigs.
Yeah.
And when those polymer chains break, the binder holding the pigment together just disintegrates. Yeah. You get what the industry calls chalking, where the paint literally turns into a fine powder on the surface.
Oh, I've run my hand along a house and had that happen.
Yes, exactly. That powder is the broken polymer chains. And if you have a darker colored house, the thermodynamics make this process happen even faster.
Because it absorbs more heat.
Right. Dark pigments absorb significantly more of that solar energy, which just accelerates the molecular breakdown.
It makes me think of wearing like a cheap, thin t-shirt out in a sandstorm while you're getting a massive sunburn.
That's a pretty intense visual, but yeah.
I mean, it's not just going to look bad at the end of the day. The fabric is going to get completely shredded. Standard paint is that cheap t-shirt.
And to make matters worse, that sandstorm you mentioned is filled with literal salt.
Oh, right. The Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, properties close to the Gulf are subjected to this constant barrage of salt spray carried by the wind. And salt is incredibly abrasive.
Just scraping away at the house.
Yeah, it acts like microscopic sandpaper,
Yeah.
mechanically weathering down those exterior acrylic layers day after day. Plus, it creates an electrolytic environment that accelerates oxidation on any exposed metal fixtures.
So the metal rusts faster.
Much faster. And then, as if the sun and the salt weren't destructive enough, you introduce the biological warfare of Florida's ambient humidity.
Right. The famous Florida humidity. The sources note that this moisture fuels mold, mildew, and algae.
Right.
So your house is basically getting baked, sandblasted, and then pollinized by fungus.
That is exactly what's happening. Which brings us to the counteroffensive.
Okay.
Since the environment is actively trying to consume the structure, standard decorative paint has zero chance of survival.
Zero.
None. You have to deploy specialized chemical formulations to fight back. And the sources highlight 2 premier options for this kind of climate: high build, 100% acrylic latex, and elastomeric coatings.
Let's break these down because this is where the engineering really shines, I think. So the 100% acrylic latex is praised in the text for being highly breathable, which is apparently crucial for wood siding and traditional masonry. But I have to push back here for a second.
Okay, lay it on me.
If we're trying to keep the wet, stormy weather out of our house, why on earth do we want our paint to be breathable? Doesn't that completely defeat the purpose of a waterproof barrier?
I know it sounds super counterintuitive until you look at the physics of how a home actually functions.
Okay.
Because a house is not a hermetically sealed vacuum. Wood naturally contains moisture. And in high humidity climates, ambient moisture invariably finds its way into the wall cavities.
It just seeps in.
Right, it seeps in. And when the Florida sun beats down on that wood or masonry, the trapped liquid water inside heats up and turns into vapor.
And that vapor needs somewhere to go.
It expands and builds internal vapor pressure. So if you've wrapped that wood in an impermeable, non-breathable layer of paint, that pressure will find the path of least resistance.
Which means?
It will physically push the paint right off the wall. The paint just blisters, bubbles, and pops.
Oh, wow. I've seen that bubbling paint before. I just assumed it was old.
Nope, that's vapor pressure popping it off from the inside.
Yeah.
But the 100% acrylic latex is engineered to be a one-way valve.
Really?
Yeah, its molecular structure allows that interior moisture vapor to safely escape from the inside out, while the surface remains tight enough to prevent liquid rain from penetrating from the outside in.
That is fascinating. So the acrylic breathes to save itself from being blown off the wall by trapped steam.
Precisely.
Okay, so that covers wood and masonry. But for stucco properties, the sources say elastomeric paint is the absolute premier choice.
It is.
And it applies much thicker than standard paint and has this incredible elasticity. I was reading this and my first thought was, it's like yoga pants for your house.
That is actually a perfect visual for what's happening mechanically.
Oh, good. Glad the yoga pants analogy works.
It totally works. Because, stucco feels incredibly rigid when you knock on it.
Yeah, it's like stone.
But the building underneath it is highly dynamic.
Right.
The framing settles, the earth shifts, and the stucco itself expands and contracts wildly with the daily thermal shock of heating up in the midday sun and cooling down at night.
So the stucco is going to crack no matter what you do.
Inevitably, yes. You get these tiny microscopic hairline cracks.
Okay.
Now, if you have standard, rigid paint on that stucco, the paint cracks right along with it.
Right.
And now you have an open wound, letting wind-driven rain straight into the building envelope.
Which is bad news.
Terrible news. But elastomeric paint is applied in a much higher film build, meaning it's significantly thicker. And because of that elasticity, it physically stretches to bridge those tiny cracks as they open and close.
Wow, that's so smart.
Yeah, it maintains a continuous, uninterrupted waterproof barrier against heavy summer downpours, even while the wall underneath it is shifting.
And the sources mention it's recommended in a satin or flat sheen, which makes sense if you don't want a, hyper glossy, stretchy house.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants a shiny rubber house.
Right. So we have acrylic for wood and elastomeric for stucco. What about the architectural details, like the window frames, the fascia boards, the trim?
Right, so for exterior wood trim, you need something much harder to protect the edges. The sources specify urethane alkyd enamel, usually in a semi-gloss or gloss finish.
Okay.
You need that dense cross-linking of the urethane to provide scratch resistance, hardness, and color retention. And across the board, no matter what base you use, acrylic, elastomeric, or urethane, the formulation must contain robust mildew-side additives.
And these mildewcides aren't just poisons, right? They're actually actively disrupting the spores.
Yeah, they function on a biological level. When a fungal spore lands on the painted surface, the mildewcides disrupt the cellular structure and enzymatic processes of the spore.
Basically stopping it in its tracks.
Completely. It prevents it from rooting into the paint film and feeding on the organic components of the binder.
There's also this quick note in the sources about color choice. Beyond just aesthetics, lighter colors actually reflect UV radiation, which helps reduce the thermal load on the building and lowers the energy costs of cooling the house.
Yeah.
So the paint is an active participant in the home's energy efficiency.
It really is.
Yeah.
But there is a massive caveat here that dictates whether any of this technology actually works. Even the most advanced military-grade chemical armor is completely useless if the application strategy is flawed.
The prep work.
The prep work. The application dictates the actual performance. You can buy the most expensive, highly engineered elastomeric paint in the world, but if the underlying prep is bad, it's going to fail.
And the sources are incredibly clear about this. Preparation requires far more labor than the actual painting.
Oh, by mile.
Yeah.
You're essentially trying to manufacture the perfect sterile conditions for a permanent chemical bond to take place on a structure that lives outside in the dirt.
Right, which sounds nearly impossible.
It's tough. For these exterior projects, that means starting with a thorough pressure wash using a targeted fungicidal solution. We talked about the salt and the mildew. A lot of it is entirely invisible to the naked eye.
Wow, invisible.
Yeah. So if you don't use a chemical solution to dissolve those salt crystals and destroy the fungal cell walls, you are painting over a microscopic layer of organic debris.
Which means your brand new paint is bonding to the dirt, not the house.
Exactly. And as soon as that dirt washes away, your paint falls off with it.
Yikes.
So after the chemical wash comes the manual scraping of any loose paint,
Uh-huh.
and then the critical phase, priming.
Okay, let's talk about priming.
Right. Bare masonry requires an alkali-resistant sealer. Raw wood needs a high-quality bonding primer to stop natural tannins and stains from bleeding through. Skipping this primer phase is described in the text as the single most costly mistake property owners make.
You know, I always wondered about this. What is the primer actually doing on a mechanical level that the expensive top coat can't just do itself?
It comes down to molecular size and specialized function. Our coats, the paints we see on the outside, are formulated with very large molecules. They're designed to interlock on the surface to form a tough, weather-resistant shell and hold on to color pigments.
Got it.
But because those molecules are so large, they cannot physically penetrate the tight, microscopic pores of raw wood or dense masonry. They just sit on top.
Ah, so they have nothing to grab onto.
Right. But primer is formulated with much smaller molecules and very specific resins. Those tiny molecules seep deep into the cellulose of the wood or the pores of the masonry, like microscopic roots.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, as the primer cures, it locks into the physical structure of the house on one side and provides a perfectly uniform, chemically compatible, textured surface for those large top coat molecules to grip onto on the other side.
It's a bridge.
It is exactly that. It's the chemical adhesive bridge.
So you wash with a fungicidal solution, you scrape, you root the primer deep into the pores, and then there's caulking.
Oh yeah, can't forget the caulking.
Every joint around the windows, the doors, the fascia, it all has to be sealed with a premium paintable elastomeric sealant. Because in a storm, rain isn't just falling down. The wind is driving it horizontally into every gap.
Oh, absolutely.
It just sounds exhausting. And speaking of exhausting, I want to talk about timing. Because I imagine a lot of ambitious dyers think, you know, hey, it's summer, the days are long, it stays light out until 8 p.m., it's the perfect time to paint the house.
Right.
Why is that a catastrophic idea in Florida?
It all comes down to the ambient atmospheric conditions interfering with the chemistry of the paint. Summer in Florida means daily afternoon rain, extreme heat, and most importantly, suffocatingly high humidity.
Basically living in a sauna.
A literal sauna. And water-based latex paints don't just dry the way a towel dries, they cure.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, curing is a complex chemical process where the water and solvents evaporate at a specific rate. And that forces the synthetic binders to tightly fuse together to form that tough protective film. But if the ambient air is already completely saturated with moisture, which is the definition of 100% humidity, the water inside the wet paint on your wall physically cannot evaporate into the air. There's literally no room
So
filled.
the chemical reaction just stalls?
Completely stalls. The curing process is entirely derailed. The paint might eventually feel dry to the touch, but structurally, the binders never fused properly.
Wow.
So the film is weak, porous, and prone to early failure. The sources strongly advise scheduling exterior painting during late fall, winter, or early spring when the relative humidity is lower and the weather patterns are dry and stable.
So it actually allows the chemistry to function as designed.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've built this incredibly resilient chemical fortress on the outside of the house.
We have.
But the irony is, once you cross the threshold and go indoors, the elements are no longer the enemy. We are.
Oh, humans are incredibly destructive to our living spaces.
We really are.
We scuff walls with our shoes, we scrape heavy furniture against them, we generate immense amounts of localized moisture in kitchens and bathrooms.
Yeah.
So the engineering of interior paint has to pivot from fighting the sun and weather to addressing these specific localized human behaviors.
And the sources break this down by room and usage. For high-traffic areas like hallways and kids' rooms, they recommend advanced scuff-resistant acrylics, usually in an eggshell sheen,
Yeah.
because it's chemically formulated to create a slicker microscopic surface that resists the friction marks from our daily lives.
And this specific formulation raises an incredibly practical point about property management,
Mm-hmm.
particularly for rentals.
Oh, right.
The sources discuss Airbnbs and short-term rentals, heavily recommending high washability eggshell or satin finishes.
And honestly, if you're a parent with toddlers who are constantly dragging their hands along the walls, I mean, you should be making this exact same ROI calculation for your own living room.
Oh, 100%.
The text notes that a durable sheen allows you, or a cleaning crew, to wipe down the walls aggressively without dulling the finish or actually removing the color layer. It's a pure business calculation to reduce how often you have to pay for a full interior repaint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're connecting interior chemical choices directly to return on investment. If a cleaning crew can scrub a luggage scuff or a muddy handprint off a hallway wall in 30 seconds, that room is immediately ready for the next tenant.
Yep.
But if the paint is cheap and chalky, wiping it just smears the dirt and pulls the paint off down to the drywall.
Oh man, that's the worst.
It is. And now you have downtime. You have to hire someone to patch, prime, and paint. You lose rental revenue, or if it's your own home, you lose your weekend.
And speaking of localized human behavior, kitchens and baths need premium acrylic latex, usually in a satin or semi-gloss, packed with those same antimicrobial properties we talked about outside.
Yes.
Because even with exhaust fans running, humans create heavy condensation from hot showers and boiling water. You have to stop mildew spores from getting past the paint and rotting the drywall paper.
Right, and then moving into commercial spaces and offices, the sources strongly push for low VOC or zero VOC acrylics in matte or eggshell.
Okay, VOC. That stands for volatile organic compounds.
Yes, it does.
These are the chemicals that give you that distinct headache-inducing new paint smell, right?
Exactly what they are. They're solvents used to keep the paint liquid in the can, but they're designed to vaporize into gases at room temperature as the paint dries. And breathing in those gases causes respiratory irritation and cognitive fatigue. So using zero VOC paints is, again, a pure business calculation.
Because you can get people back in the room faster.
Exactly. It means fast drying and no toxic off-gassing.
Oh.
It allows for immediate occupancy. You don't have to shut down an entire office floor for a week and disrupt a business just to let the paint fumes dissipate.
The sources also dive into color psychology, which I found totally fascinating, especially for everyone still working remotely.
Oh, yeah.
They talk about borrowing residential color strategies to make stark commercial spaces feel more inviting. But for home offices, they specifically recommend muted blues and earthy greens. And this isn't just an aesthetic preference. These specific wavelengths of light are proving to boost concentration, physically reduce visual fatigue on the eyes, and lower stress hormones.
It's amazing.
Right, so the paint on your wall is actively helping you endure an 8-hour day of Zoom meetings.
It just emphasizes that the environment we curate around ourselves isn't passive. It has a profound, measurable biological impact on our cognitive function and our emotional state.
So what does this all mean for the long haul? You've invested the money, you've chosen the right specialized chemistry, you've prepped the surface perfectly. How do you keep this highly engineered coating from degrading prematurely?
Well, the baseline expectation, according to the sources, is that a typical doned-in exterior paint job lasts 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
If the property is directly on the waterfront, it's closer to 5 because of that relentless mechanical abrasion from the salt spray.
But the elastomeric coatings on stucco can push it to a full 10 years.
They can, but only with proper routine maintenance. And this is where a lot of well-meaning homeowners make critical, destructive errors.
I can only imagine.
The text recommends a gentle annual wash. Low pressure, using a standard garden hose and a mild detergent, just to rinse that abrasive salt and dirt off the surface.
Wait, so if I see some dirt or mildew creeping up my siding, I shouldn't just drag out my 4,000 PSI pressure washer and blast it clean?
Oh, please don't. That is the fastest way to ruin the investment.
Good to know.
If you hit that surface with 4,000 PSI, you are basically doing the environment's destructive job for it. A pressure washer that strong can etch solid concrete. It will actively obliterate the 2 mil thick layer of acrylic resin you just paid thousands of dollars to apply.
It just strips it right off.
This shatters the chemical binders. You had to treat it gently. You are washing a flexible, protective skin, not blasting a concrete driveway.
That is such a crucial distinction. The sources also mention the importance of inspecting the exterior after major tropical weather
I do.
events. You want to spot new hairline cracks in the stucco or places where the elastomeric caulking is pulling away from a window frame and touch them up immediately.
Right. Don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait for the next storm to push water behind the paint and cause a massive rotting bubble.
It's the difference between proactive maintenance and catastrophic reactive repair.
And there is a very specific rule mentioned for the exterior, the 2-foot rule.
Ah, yes.
You have to keep all vegetation, bushes, and tree branches trimmed at least 2 feet away from the exterior walls.
Yeah, because plants are essentially natural paint strippers. When the wind blows, branches and stiff leaves rub against the house, physically acting like sandpaper and wearing down the top coat.
Just scraping away.
Furthermore, dense foliage planted right up against the siding alters the microclimate of the wall.
How so?
It traps ambient moisture, preventing the sun and wind from naturally drying the surface out. So it creates a permanently damp, shaded environment, which is the exact recipe for aggressive fungal growth.
It's like leaving a wet, dirty towel pressed against the side of your house year-round.
That's a gross thought, but yes, exactly like that. And moving inside, the maintenance rules are similar in their demand for gentleness.
Okay.
Use a non-abrasive sponge and warm water for scuffs. You have to avoid harsh chemical solvents like heavy bleach or abrasive scrubbing powders, because those chemicals will erode the protective clear binders that give the interior paint its washability in the first place.
Makes sense. There's also one last interior tip that I never would have considered: keeping your indoor AC consistent.
Yeah, that's a big one.
The sources point out that you want to prevent massive temperature and humidity fluctuations inside the house because those dramatic swings cause the drywall itself to expand and contract.
Right.
Over time, that thermal shock can actually cause the interior paint layers to lose their adhesion and separate from the drywall.
It all reinforces the core concept that the home is a deeply interconnected dynamic system. The humidity in the air affects the physical state of the drywall, which stresses the primer, which dictates the survival of the top coat.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the harsh reality of the Florida climate, the UV photons shattering chemical bonds, the abrasive salt acting like sandpaper, the suffocating biological threat of humidity.
Yeah.
And we looked at how we defend against that with highly engineered armor. So breathable 100% acrylics that act as one-way moisture valves for wood, and stretching elastomeric yoga pants for dynamic stucco.
And we examined the demanding strategy of application, the immense labor of chemical surface preparation, the absolute necessity of primer acting as microscopic roots to create a chemical bridge, and the critical importance of avoiding the humid summer months so the solvents can properly evaporate and cure.
Then we stepped inside, looking at how scuff-resistant, washable sheens and zero VOC paints are essentially ROI engines for rentals and commercial spaces, a lesson that parents of toddlers should absolutely be stealing. Not to mention the earthy greens that are lowering our stress hormones during the remote workday.
The core takeaway here, whether you are a homeowner trying to preserve a family residence, an Airbnb host optimizing turnover, or managing a commercial office space, is identical. Treating paint as an engineered protective system rather than just a decorative afterthought is what will save you massive structural repair costs down the line. It is the absolute first line of defense for the building envelope.
It really is. It permanently changes how you look at the walls around you. Which leads me to one final thought to leave you all with today.
Okay.
If exterior paint isn't just color, if it is actually a dynamic, stretching, breathable skin that reacts to temperature, humidity, and vapopressure, how does that change how we look at the other cosmetic updates to our homes?
Oh, that's interesting.
Are there other parts of our living spaces, our flooring, our landscaping, our window treatments that we treat as purely decorative when they are actually doing heavy structural lifting to protect us? Keep questioning the everyday world around you. There's always more beneath the surface. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.